Look at a map right now. Find Alaska. Find Russia. Now look at the tiny stretch of water between them. It's only 50 miles wide. That's it. 50 miles of freezing, grey ocean separating one continent from another. But here's the strange part. For thousands of years, that 50 miles wasn't ocean at all. It was dry land, and your ancestors walked across it. You've probably heard the simple version of this story. Ancient people crossed a land bridge into America. End of story. But the real answer is far stranger than that. It wasn't a bridge, it was a world. During the last ice age, so much of Earth's water was locked into glaciers that sea levels dropped by more than 300 feet. That exposed a massive stretch of land connecting Siberia to Alaska. Scientists call it Beringia. It wasn't a narrow strip you could cross in an afternoon. It was roughly the size of Texas and Alaska combined. Grasslands, river valleys, herds of mammoths and bison grazing in the wind. People didn't just cross it, they lived there for thousands of years. This idea is called the Beringian standstill hypothesis, and it comes from genetic research led by scientists like Dennis O'Rourke, who studied ancient DNA to figure out where the first Americans actually came from. What he found didn't match the old story. The ancestors of Native Americans didn't sprint across a bridge. They paused. They stayed in Beringia for thousands of years, isolated from both Asia and the Americas, slowly becoming a distinct population before ever setting foot on this continent. Why does that matter? Because it means the bridge wasn't a hallway. It was a homeland. An entire population's worth of history happened on land that doesn't exist anymore. It's underwater now. Erased. If you wanted to visit the place where an entire branch of humanity took shape, you'd need a submarine, not a road trip. So, how did people actually get from there to here? For decades, archaeologists assumed a straightforward march down the middle of the continent, through a corridor between two enormous ice sheets. But geologist John Hoffaker and his colleagues found a problem. That inland corridor wasn't ice-free early enough. It would have been impassable, choked with ice and lifeless terrain, right when humans needed to move through it. So they didn't go through the middle, they went around the edge. This is called the coastal migration theory, sometimes nicknamed the Kelp Highway. Instead of trekking through frozen tundra, people may have followed the Pacific coastline. Island by island, inlet by inlet. Kelp forests along that coast would have supported fish, seals and shellfish, offering a reliable food source the whole way down. You wouldn't need to conquer a continent. You'd just need to follow the shoreline south, one camp at a time, generation after generation. Think about that for a second. Your ancestors may not have crossed America in one heroic dash. They inched down a coastline the way you'd scroll through a long page, slowly, without ever feeling like they were doing anything historic at all. That's the part people miss. It never felt like a migration to them. It felt like Tuesday. Genetic evidence backs this up in a strange way too. Research led by geneticist S.K. Willerslev, using ancient DNA pulled from remains found across the Americas, has shown that the earliest populations spread south remarkably fast once they got moving, reaching as far as South America within just a few thousand years. Fast enough that a slow, methodical march through a single interior corridor doesn't fully explain it. A coastal route, boat-assisted and food-rich, fits the timeline much better, which means somewhere along the way someone paddled, not in a canoe built for adventure, probably a rough hide boat, built to catch fish, used out of necessity. Nobody was trying to discover a continent, they were trying to feed their family. And in doing that quietly, unremarkably, meal by meal, they became the first people to ever see the entire Western Hemisphere. Here's the part that should sit with you. You do the exact same thing they did, just in a different shape. You don't wake up and decide to change your life in one giant leap. You take the next small step because it's in front of you. You follow the coastline of your own routine, one day at a time, rarely noticing that the ground beneath you is shifting. Somewhere, a population that no longer has a name spent generations on a stretch of land that isn't even on a map anymore. They didn't know they were making history. They were just trying to get through the week. So look at that map again. Find the 50 miles of ocean between Alaska and Russia. It's not empty water. It's a headstone for an entire chapter of human history, submerged and half forgotten. And it's proof of something worth remembering. You don't need a bridge to change everything. You just need to keep walking.